Hi, Alberto.
Hi, John. Hi, Nina.
Hello.
Alan's there. Sadal is there.
Hi, Jonathan. Just having
Hi,
problems.
Alan.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Sarah.
How are you, Nina?
Hi, Sarah.
Missing a week. It seems a long time since we've seen everyone.
Yeah. We missed a session last week, didn't we?
No, but are you in Hong Kong now?
We're in Hong Kong now.
But I thought you would be in Bangkok.
No, we're here for a month in Hong Kong. That's why I have a different backdrop.
Yeah.
Are you here, Jam?
สวัสดีค่ะ I'm here.
Sapika Jam.
สวัสดีครับท่านอาจารย์สวัสดีครับ
Sawadika.
So I think we can start. Do you have something you'd like to start with, Nina?
Yes, I have something. We read many times and we hear so many times that attachment is a danger. But then we learn that it has to be understood as a condition Dhamma and not to be suppressed. But I find you hear it is a danger, there is immediately a kind of reaction. I don't want it. And so there is a subtle idea of suppressing it. So I think it's very helpful if Ajahn can elaborate more on not suppressing it, but understanding it.
Is suppressing wholesome?
No, it's akusala.
That's why it's not enough just to say that it's akusa, but the moment when it's there, it's not peaceful at all. So one can see that it's dangerous because it harms the citta. What about just letting go all kinds of reality because they just arise and fall away, depending on understanding at every moment. We learn a lot by word about this and that, but when it's there, depends on conditions, how much understanding or how much kusala or akusa is there by conditions. This is the way or the path leading to understanding the different moments between kusala and akusala, unwholesome moment, unpleasant moment, and understand it as just a reality. We don't have to find out deeper that what is it? Is it accompanied by such and such? But the characteristic of that which is there in time, any moment, from birth up to now, it's there just experiencing the object and then gone. That's not enough at all in one's life to remember this because it's there all the time, hidden because of the accumulation of ignorance and attachment and other reality which cannot understand the truth. That's why just learn to understand it, just to understand it deeper. That's all. That's all. Nothing can be done, but it can be known little by little. The reality which experiences the object anytime, even right now. If it's not known, how can it be? How can it not be someone or I or thing, something all the time? But understanding the meaning of each word so true, but it doesn't appear as it is, that's all. That's why we learn a little more about what is there in a moment. Otherwise, how can there be the moment of understanding what pops up from this to that all the time? If it doesn't fall away, how can the other pops up just instantly and then gone? What is left is to be heard, to understand the truth of it right now, little by little, until it's their conditions to just attend to the characteristic of that which appears as a reality. A reality. Nobody can change its characteristic. And no one can have moment of being aware with understanding of the truth that it's just hardness or smell or whatever. Only by conditions it begins to think about, to attend to the characteristic, not forget it from time to time. So rare in the day, but it is the way it develops by conditions. Otherwise, low power attachment is there. Just want something or some more understanding, a little, even a little. Is there not something to do more than this? Impossible. Nothing to be done. Just listen, considering the truth in all aspects, to begin to have more letting go of the idea of self.
And Nina, as we know, only understanding can lead to the eventual eradication of the unwholesome accumulated tendency. So suppression doesn't actually achieve anything in the long run. It is a temporary measure which satisfies a particular kind of idea we have about the way things should be, which is some kind of wrong view probably, but anyway, we know this. But the fact is that the tendency to want to suppress has been accumulated and will of course occur from time to time. And so that then becomes the reality of the moment, doesn't it?
That's a good tip, yes. Even the idea of that I don't want it, even that idea is accumulated for a long time. Yes.
And it's an illusion, the idea that I can suppress, I can stop the lobha from arising. Because even in the development of calm, without understanding of realities, still no one can do anything. It depends on conditions, whether calm and kusala accumulates and develops. So with or without any understanding, no one that can do anything at all. Even if one's never heard the Buddha's teaching, still no one that can suppress, no one can do anything. So it's a fantasy that I can make a resolution, I can suppress, I can do anything at all.
But the inclination may be so strong, so much accumulated. So as that, even that can be known as a conditioned reality.
And it has to be known, otherwise that very strong clinging to self, that strong inclination to do something will never be eradicated if it's not understood as it is.
Yeah, that's it.
So it is that is the problem, the trying to suppress, trying to do, trying to change.
To understand it as it is. So can you elaborate more on how to understand it as it is when it appears?
And again, if it's I trying to understand, trying to catch it, then it's not the right way, it's the wrong way. But naturally, by considering realities as dhammas, as conditioned, not in anyone's control, not that can be changed or suppressed, but arising and falling away all the time, understanding works its way, it begins to develop. And gradually, as the understanding develops, it understands that not just attachment, but whatever is conditioned is dangerous in the deepest sense, because whatever arises is the object of clinging, but it falls away instantly. So that's why there has to be the letting go, but the letting go can only develop with the understanding of dhammas as conditioned, not in anyone's control or power.
As you say, understanding works its way, which is a good reminder. It has nothing to do with self or I can do anything.
And nothing to do with wishing to have more understanding or having resolutions to have more understanding or intending to have more understanding. This is just accumulating more, clinging to the idea of I that can do something.
Something, yeah. It comes in all the time. I notice so subtle.
So one can smile because it's conditioned that way. It can be known as it is when it arises, but it's just for a moment and then gone.
Sarah. Oh, sorry.
Gone out.
Oh, yeah. I was just wondering
one brief.
how do we progress with, say, the Metta Sutta, the Sutta on kindness, which states, "May all beings be of blissful heart, with none excepted." How do we progress when we read that sutta, when we understand that actually each moment is under conditions, including kindness? No one can have it at will. So no one can do anything. Doesn't matter how many times we repeat that or read it, it won't make a difference because that moment is under conditions. So how do we progress when we read that sutta?
By understanding, no we to progress at all. No one progresses, but by understanding the nature of metta when it arises, friendliness to whoever is around, it accumulates, it develops, but not by I trying to have metta or I trying to progress. And that's why at the end of the sutta we read about insight into whatever appears. So just trying to have metta, just trying to repress attachment is the wrong way, the wrong path. So one has to forget about the idea of we progressing.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Good answer.
I think it's a good.
To say that.
I know you go.
Just briefly.
Go.
Sorry.
Go here.
Hard back on Nina's point. Sorry for a minute, Sundra. That because there tends to be what we could call fear of a kusala. So when it's recognized that the consciousness is a kusala, immediately one wants to shy away from that and somehow change the situation. But that fear is just an accumulated tendency. We wish for it to be otherwise, which can be another moment of consciousness. And it's not helpful towards the development of the path, and it's not helpful towards developing kusala either.
So
Just
if we understand that it's not helpful, it may be a condition not to shy away.
Well, I think also, as Jonathan just alluded to, Nina, we've got that accumulated tendency, though. Yes, all those more constructive, shall we say, affirmations, I'm hesitant to use that word, but I'm trying to put it in the right context, will all help. But as Jonathan alluded to, once you've got that accumulated tendency, the likelihood of it happening again, that's not a problem in itself, because that can be the object of understanding. It's another type of attachment, or perhaps a type of aversion. So, yeah, they're all helpful in some respects, or they all can be understood no matter what they are. Yeah, so it seems to me. I was just going to add, Ellen, I think it's a really good question, because it kind of touches on many aspects of the sutta, so that, because I think they're so easily misread. And I think it's so easy to do, much more easy than people may think, especially when it's sometimes English translations too can be not particularly helpful. And that's especially when they talk about meditation and that kind of thing. So, as I said, just to repeat, it's a good question, because there seems to be an injunction to extend metta in a way. But I think Tanajan has often talked about being friendly, which is certainly an aspect of metta by conditions. And perhaps I should add that everything has to be seen in context, and bearing in mind, if possible, so many other aspects of the teachings. And when we read something, okay, so, and what you're asking is a good question in the sense that, well, that seems to contradict the teachings. But if we ponder carefully, it doesn't have to contradict the teachings at all when it's understood in the light of conditionality. But yeah, it's another example of how we can so easily misconstrue. I'm not saying you were, of course. It's easy to misconstrue the Dhamma by thinking, oh God, that's something I should do, but that won't happen like that. And I think what's been alluded to today in some extent about, and Tanajan touched on this earlier on, is about listening carefully, continually, by conditions again, and then there will be more conditions for metta, as kind of has been alluded to by Jonathan in a sense when he's speaking to Nina also, that there's no, it's understanding Dhamma in context.
Thank you, Sandar. That's a good answer. Yeah.
So from the beginning, there has to be understanding of what metta is and how it's a Dhamma, a conditioned Dhamma, because otherwise there's bound to be the idea of I and I developing metta. So if there's no understanding of the characteristic of metta when it appears in daily life, then it can never be developed. So as we've often discussed, usually common attachment is taken for metta, friendliness to one's associates, one's family, those one likes to be with. But metta is a quality of kindness, gentleness, no matter who one is associating with, no matter who one meets in the street or the hotel or at work, for example. And it's like every other reality, it's conditioned. It arises by conditions and falls away as soon as there is clinging, wishing to have metta, just like the wishing to suppress attachment. Then no development of metta at all. So it, like the understanding, it has to develop naturally with understanding, not by wishing or trying to have it at all.
I think also Sarah's raised a good point there, Alan, because we have the near and far enemies. She's just reminding me of that as she spoke. You know, the near enemy is prema or affection, and I think, as Sarah also alluded to, there are many people who think they're having metta, as I read it, but it's just a subtle form of attachment, or perhaps a quite a gross form of attachment. And without the development of understanding, it's difficult, I would say impossible, for people to understand what metta is. And kusala is relatively very rare in our life. And I think that's easy to overlook and think, oh yes, I should be kind to that person or whatever, but that's not helpful either. But as I said, I think it's easy to think there is metta, but there's an actual fact there is not metta.
It means we are deluding ourselves all the time. And that's why understanding of this moment is so important.
Yes, Nina, I think it always comes back to that. It's always a good reminder, because be it the development of metta, be it the development of understanding, be it, relating to your question also, this aspect of suppression, the more understanding there can be, the less conditions, of course, there will be for suppression and more conditions for metta. So that always seems to be the common denominator of so many of our questions, is to develop the understanding of the reality that appears at this particular moment, whatever it be. And then there's more conditions for kusala. It's not I don't think, and it sounds theoretically relatively easy. It's not at all, because it's a conditioned Dhamma. Understanding is a conditioned Dhamma, and it arises when there are the appropriate conditions, when we listen carefully, having considered carefully. We think about those 4 conditions for enlightenment, and we could probably hang them up on the wall all the time. Having the wise teacher, listening carefully, attending wisely, and following in accordance with that. So there needs to be that continual recollection and reflection when there are the conditions for it. That's another example of perhaps alluding to Alan's question, because it talks about having sati and having panya, but we can all say those things, but is it really sati at the level of satipatthana or not? And more than likely, often it's not. So it's the more carefully we consider, the more conditions there will be for understanding to develop, and all those other benefits that we've spoken about today to a lesser or greater degree.
And Alan, getting back to the subject of developing metta, which people talk about quite a lot. Actually, the only way metta can develop is as and when, or if and when it actually arises in daily life and is recognized as such by panya. And that would be the development of metta. So metta cannot be developed any other way. And so for us, we are, to borrow Nina's terms, we're deluding ourselves if we are thinking in terms of developing metta as something to be done, because it's just not possible. It's only when a wholesome quality has been developed to a very high degree that the sort of things that one reads about in some of the suttas, where it seems to be suggesting that it can be brought to mind, or the wholesome quality can arise at will almost, because that's the definition of being a power, isn't it? When a wholesome quality is developed to the stage where it becomes a power, then it can be brought to it can occur almost at will, as it were. So, but for us, that's not a possibility, and so it always comes back to just the present moment and understanding its nature.
When is a hindrance and when is it not a hindrance? So, for example, attachment can be understood at the present moment, but attachment can also hinder the development of understanding. So when would you say that attachment is a hindrance? So when are the hindrances because they can be understood?
Well, I suppose they can also distract, and there can be no understanding. So it's a sort
To
of a
prevent
technical
listening.
point. I don't know that there's an answer to that question of when is attachment a hindrance and when is it not a hindrance, except to say that obviously when it's the object of understanding, it's not a hindrance.
Yes, because yeah, go ahead, Sarah.
It's easy to see that when it's strong attachment, for example, the strong attachment to having metta, or to suppressing attachment, or to following a practice, to doing something, it's a real hindrance because it moves along the wrong path instead of leading to the right path, takes one away from the right understanding of what appears. Or when it's a strong clinging, like I think in the last discussion, there was a discussion about drinking, and when one's more and more obsessed with the drinking and the taste, and it leads to wrong deeds, one can see it's a real hindrance. Again, it leads further and further away from the understanding of what appears now, even though there can be understanding of even that strong attachment when it appears. When there's understanding, then of course it's not a hindrance. But when the attachment is strong, taking one away from the right path, taking one away from listening to the Dhamma, considering wise reflection, it hinders the development of understanding.
Thank you.
I think one can tell for oneself, like if one's angry or very irritated and obsessed with the object, no understanding. And same with attachment or ignorance. When one's obsessed with that object of clinging, no understanding at those moments, even though understanding can arise and understand the reality at those moments. If one's absorbed with the idea that I can and should develop more metta, it hinders the right way, because there's no letting go of the idea of self. Instead, there's more and more clinging to the idea of self at those moments.
Tana Janka, what I would like to hear what you say on this area of the development of metta. You often talk about being friendly, and where possible, where the conditions are right. What other things would you say are helpful for the development of metta? I'm loath to ask the question in a way, but I think it's a useful question. I'd like you to elaborate a little bit about it. Thank you, Tanajan.
Can anyone be metta without understanding the characteristic of metta?
No, my chai cup.
And when there is the understanding of metta as just a reality, no one there at all. So the understanding of whatever arises must have conditions for its arising. So metta is just like any reality without conditions. It cannot arise at all. So if the point of listening to the teaching is to have more metta, that's not right at all, because lopa is there, wanting to be better, having more and more metta and so on. But what about no understanding of metta and just want to have metta? It's just like craving for anything which is seen, heard, and so on. That's why the point of listening to the teachings is just to understand the truth. And that is not anyone who understands. It is a reality which, before hearing, considering the truth, there's no condition for it to arise at all, even just at the very beginning. That's why from understanding the conditions for each reality, there can be the understanding of listening to the words of the teaching about this moment. It's not yet enough at all, because it's their ignorance after seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and thinking, see. That's why begin to let go the idea of self, trying to understand or trying to have such and such quality of wholesomeness. But it's just moment of really understand each word as a reality until whatever is there in life, normal life, daily life, is just a reality. And that can condition more kusala, more metta, because at that moment, no one to be hatred, to be hated, see, because no one there at all. That's why no expectation to have such and such quality. All depends on each accumulation to have what appears at this moment. If there's no condition for it arising, no matter we try to listen to metta or try to have metta, it's attachment at that moment. So it's attachment metta. That's why the teachings of the Buddha about reality, each reality is so very subtle. Even hardness now appearing, who can think or imagine that it has to be directly known as it is, stage by stage, like other reality, like hatred or attachment or seeing or hearing and everything, because they are all different dhammas, conditioned reality arising and falling away, never to return at all. And this kind of thought, thinking about the truth, can let go the attachment, even just very subtle, to have such and such quality as metta or karuna and so on, or whatever. All depends on conditions. That's why no one can stop the arising of conditioned realities, no matter it is so ugly, akusala, but it's there. And only right understanding can understand it as no one there at all. It's just a conditioned reality and then gone, never to return. Just having more understanding of the truth can let go other unwholesome reality, no matter it is attachment or aversion, ego, ignorance. That's all. Just learn to understand that actually, without hearing, considering the truth, it's impossible even to know how much accumulation of ignorance from life to life, from moment to moment, even right now. That's why just learn to understand reality as much as there can be moment of reflecting on it, reflects on it, careful study, consider until it's there a little more, letting go attachment, aversion, and ignorance of that reality. That's all. And that is the way that there's less attachment to any reality because of understanding the truth of each, that it's just a reality, different ones. Even right now, that's why what is not known now, what is the truth of it? Can it be known little by little? The reality which experiences the object is there, and the reality which cannot experience anything. But it is always taken for something, like the moon, the star, the people, and so on, and learn to understand little by little, and understanding that never enough. It has to develop more and on until the truth appears stage by stage. Even what we talk about, the reality, which is the chief of experiencing, there is now, from birth, non-stop, arising and falling away, it's not just enough, because it has to be understanding the moment of experiencing anything and understanding that it's not permanent. See, because in truth, it's not permanent, but it's not, it does not appear as it is. Even there can be the understanding little by little about the characteristic of that which appears as it is that which has no shape and form, now sees or experiences the visible object. More than that, the nimitta of all these characteristics has to be known as it does not last at all. It arises and then falls away. So the other pops up by conditions and so on. So what is now appear can be clearer, a little clearer at moment of beginning, not to forget the characteristic of it, which appears to one of the 6 domains. That's all. Just about the eye, the ear, the nose, the tongue, the body sense, and the mind from life to life. Different moments, just see or just think or just like. I have so many motives to do this and that. Different ones all the time, even right now. Even it's not so difficult, but it's always forgotten. It's not difficult because it's there. And there are moments of hearing, considering, listening to the truth, but not enough. The point is not enough yet, because it's there, but it does not appear as it is until it begins to appear as it is. Not clearly, not very distinct, but beginning to understand the difference between seeing and hearing and thinking and hardness and what is there at moment of being aware with understanding of the truth from considering what is heard. Even right now, it's moment of beginning to understand it or not, depending on conditions, until it's there so natural. Whatever in life appears, if there's no understanding of the truth, wrong understanding with ignorance and attachment is there. How can it be letting go until never arise again? No one can stop the arising and falling away of what is there, but it does not show up as it is. It just continue on with ignorance and attachment to take it for something all the time in one's life, and not just only this life. Until it's gradually known at moment of it's there now. What is there now? Seeing, that which is seen, touching, and hardness and so on, ready to be known, depending on conditions for whether there is a reality which can understand it, not by anyone, but by conditions when time comes. There are so many realities in a moment, so very, very quickly arising and falling away, ready for understanding, to understand it by conditions. No selection. Moment of hearing, moment of liking, moment of experiences, very strong taste, very hot, or any time. Just in split seconds. Until some can be known, not all yet, little by little, from one reality to another reality, little by little. If it's not the object of understanding, it's the object of ignorance and attachment.
Thank you kindly, Tanajan, for that brilliant answer. Very helpful. It seems that it seems that forgetfulness and, as you have alluded to, lots of attachment and ignorance that get in the way. So what I take away from hearing what you have just said, Tanajan, is how important it is to bear the Dhamma in mind skillfully, not with the sense of somebody who's got to do something, somebody who needs to do something, but the gradual development of understanding of whatever reality appears. Because unless there is that understanding, there would just be more conditions, as you said, for different levels of attachment and different levels of ignorance. I appreciate that, Tanajan.
And I appreciate your understanding too. And it cannot be any other way else at all. Only from moment to moment. And
a few weeks ago, Lucas brought up the two conditions, paratogosa and yoniso manasikara, hearing the wise words and wise attention. But we also read in the sutta that there can be unwise attention. So it's the same when reading the Metta Sutta or any other sutta, even though they are the wise words of the Buddha, if there's unwise attention, ayoniso manasikara, and clinging and the idea of doing something or having metta, then it's the wrong path. So what's important is the wise consideration, the understanding, no matter what is heard or read, or even if it's reading a newspaper or watching TV? What about the consideration, the understanding of the reality now? That is what is really important. And I can see Tam Tan, I think you are here. And this topic reminds me of when you came recently with Lian and other Vietnamese friends to visit us in Sydney. And you brought up a very similar topic about having resolutions to do good and develop metta. I'm wondering if you have any other comments or questions you would like to add, because you mentioned that sometimes the discussions here, especially when many Pali terms are used, are difficult to follow. Are you there, Tam Tan? Maybe she's not here, but anyway, Lian will also remember that it was just the same topic, the idea that it's good to have resolutions and to determine to have more metta and to be a good person and so on. But we don't appreciate the strong clinging to the idea of self at those times. So we had quite a lively discussion on this topic too. I think that trying to do something, trying to have metta, trying to have understanding, trying to suppress akusala is the real hindrance, because it leads to the wrong path, further and further away from understanding what appears now. It also came up in a discussion with Maeve a few weeks ago about the ideas that are very common of paying attention, the idea that Yoniso Manasikara is paying attention or trying to encourage wise attention. And I mentioned a friend in his practice had the idea of having a wise intention or idea to be good before eating meals or before certain activities. But this is all the wrong understanding, the idea of I trying to be good, trying to have attention, not the understanding of what wise attention is that arises with moments of kusala by conditions, not understanding that there is manasikara attention at every moment in life, arising by conditions, not by anyone's will. Does anyone else have anything they would like to ask about or add on any of these topics?
Yes, Ajahn often says realities are so subtle. And I was wondering, subtle in what way? I read they are so subtle because they are all about now. And I think it's helpful if Ajahn can explain a little more why realities are so subtle.
Nina, is it realities that are subtle, or is it the Dhamma that is subtle, deep and subtle?
Is that
The
not
Dhamma teaching.
the Dhamma is about reality, but I hear often realities are so subtle.
So what's now? Now,
Seeing is now.
now. See, what's now? Even that is so worthwhile to begin to attend to now. What's now? Seeing. So it's time to understand seeing as no one. It's a reality. Without it, which sees, nothing can appear as whisper object at all. It's so true, but it's so deep, because seeing does not appear at all. Only the object which is seen appear all the time, anytime, today, yesterday, tomorrow. So how can there be the understanding of the reality just arise to see? Not the other moment when it hears, just arise to hear. It is not always there and just hear and just see, but it's the moment of conditioned reality. And there is no idea about conditions for seeing. Only seeing itself, it's there. It sees, but if we try to find it out as the color or whatever rupa is, not at all. That's why consider the truth of it. Nothing is there as rupa, no color, no shoes, no smell at all. But there is that which experiences. And when it's there, nothing can appear together. No sound there, no sight there, no smell there, no hardness there. Is it that moment yet? Or it begins to attend not to the object which is experienced, but the reality which experienced. Because it's there, but it does not appear. So what is that? Which is not object which is seen or sound or anything at all, but it's there. It is that which experiences an object, but the object doesn't appear when it appears. This is the beginning to understand the fourth of path, the fourth of the noble path, the way to develop, to understand the truth, which is there, which is not been realized before, to be understood little by little that it's there all the time, but not the same one. Deeper than that, even that is not permanent. Just moment when it's there, conditioned to see and then gone. Just conditioned to see and gone, as we have heard about the process of each citta. That's why learning to understand the pariyatti of the Four Noble Paths, and the path is so very subtle, but can develop because of understanding that without understanding the truth of each reality, how can there be the distinction between the difference of each one, as this is not that, and citta is not cetasika, and so on. And rupa, see, just consider one characteristic of a reality in order to get closer to the truth. That which experiences the object is there, but it arises and falls away as well by conditions. Deeper and deeper truth, unknown until it's there, begin to be attended as its experiences, not the object. The characteristic of the reality which sees is not that which is seen. Any moment it's there. Even when there is attachment, the object is there, experienced by citta as a chi, and is experienced by attachment as its object of attachment. But usually there can be the imagine or the moment of attachment as it's not anchor. But the characteristic of no self and no one is not there appearing. it's me or mine all the time. But what is there as the object of attachment is experienced by citta, and no one think about it. That's why it has to be different satipatthana, cittanupassana satipatthana, dhammanupassana satipatthana, and so on, to have clear understanding of the truth at moment of direct awareness of just one reality, one characteristic at a time. Even right now, hardness appears. The reality which experiences is there too. But who knows who attain to that characteristic as it experiences that hardness, otherwise hardness cannot appear at all. Learning just to understand the difference between each reality so that there can be moment of being aware of one characteristic. Even at the beginning, it can be just thinking about it and develop on and on until it is aware with right understanding, so very little until it's more and more developed, on and on and on. So the path is so very subtle too, because the reality is so very subtle. So watch now, see one reality. What is it? Visible object, not the seeing, or the reality which experience no visible object appearing together at all. No rupa or any other reality can be there. Imagine the pure citta.
Nina, do you have a follow-up question on that? Otherwise, I notice that Betty has her hand up. Is it on this topic, Betty?
I just wanted to ask, I guess, add to the idea with Nina talking about the subtlety of realities, John's beautiful explanation. Seems to me that, well, to me, anyway, it seems that with increased understanding, realities, if there's increased understanding over time and reaching various stages of understanding of the realities, they become less and less subtle in that sense. They're only subtle because they're not understood. But when they are understood, they are less subtle. Something like that. What's your reaction, John? You look skeptical. Yeah, you look skeptical.
But the reality itself is subtle. It's not the fact whether they are understood or not, but the reality, like seeing or hearing, they appear, but they never appear like they are. We always have wrong ideas because it is complicated, it is subtle to know exactly what seeing is, what hearing is, different from thinking about what you see or hear. And Ajahn also said in the beginning, more understanding, even if it is thinking, but thinking and awareness are not the same, because thinking can so often be I myself, I am thinking and taking thinking for self.
One of the things, the importance is to learn the difference between what is understanding and what is thinking in terms of self, and understand greater and greater understanding of the difference between those two ends, I want to call them, not ends, but those two forms of thinking is basically what is needed again by conditions. So, to develop, to have greater understanding of the difference between what is really understood and what is the common perception of everything by a self. And that takes lots of patience and long time.
So seeing appears now. Everyone knows they're seeing, but immediately it's taken for something, and for I that sees my experience. So just the Dhamma which arises and falls away is the subtle Dhamma not understood. And it's the same with metta, just a moment of kindness or friendliness, the kusala citta, but it's taken for something, it's taken for my kindness, it's confused with attachment. So the Dhamma, metta, which arises by conditions and falls away instantly, is subtle, not what it seems at all. So all dhammas are subtle because all dhammas are conditioned and fall away instantly, not in anyone's control, not belonging to anyone. And all are dangerous because they arise, they're the object of clinging instantly, like metta or seeing or what is seen. But the actual subtle Dhamma has fallen away already.
But it is so hard not to take metta for self, because we think, oh, this person is not so kind, but I will make an extra effort to be kind to that person. And immediately it's my kindness.
My kindness and that person that's not so nice, or ideas of people and things all the time. Very natural. So we can see how metta is subtle. Each reality is subtle. Not anything, not anyone. And it's relief, it's letting go when there's more and more appreciation, nothing to be done, more confidence that understanding just develops and works its way. And the other qualities like metta also just develop naturally with understanding, not anyone, not anything to do. Yes. Because when there's the idea, I should make an effort, it's different from just the moments of metta, of the moments of kindness.
Yes, but it's so natural to think, oh, let me make an extra effort for this person. It's just not so pleasant person. And that's I again, I know.
Different moments, different realities, all conditioned and all gone away.
And I think, Nina, a lot depends on the circumstances as to whether or to what extent any kusala is involved in that resolution, if you like, to make an extra effort. One might do it naturally out of consideration for the other person for a start,
Yeah.
Or it could be prompted by an idea of wanting to develop metta and thinking,
Of course, I think
I should be.
they alternate, the kusala and akusala alternate so closely, and
Yeah.
that's why we are so confused. We confuse kusala and akusala.
Yeah.
And when there's confusion, that's moments of akusala as well.
Yeah.
So different moments, and whatever appears, the kindness, the confusion, the eye trying, they're just dhammas that can be known for what they are and gone instantly.
Very good. Yeah. Yeah. And this discussion is helpful to consider more the difference between kusala and akusala. Otherwise, we are completely unknown.
As we've said before, ultimately, in terms of development of the path, all that matters is the understanding and not how much kusala there is in a day.
Yeah.
I think there's a subtle idea, that then there should be more kusala in a day to support the development of understanding, perhaps. And it's difficult to get away from that idea. But anyway, when on a occasion like this, we can really consider that the development of the path is about understanding and not about having more kusala in a day.
And it has to be about what appears now, not about, well, what was the citta when I was speaking to the lady this morning, but what about now? The seeing now, the kindness now, the unkindness now, the irritation now, sound now. The understanding can only be about what actually appears at this moment.
But it's so difficult, really, to understand the difference between right considering and thinking about realities.
Well, right considering is thinking, but it can be wise or unwise thinking. So when it's right considering, it's kusala thinking.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Like thinking with understanding, reflecting with understanding about what the truth is at this moment. That is the right considering.
Yes, that's very clear. Yeah, that's helpful.
Because as we've often said, the understanding when there's listening is not enough. Sutta Maya Panya, there has to be the careful considering again and again, reflecting again with understanding. Otherwise, if it's just heard and forgotten, it's not of much value. So the wise considering again and again is very useful. But again, if it's I trying to consider wisely, it's the wrong way.
Again, yeah.
Dao or Alberto, do you have anything you would like to bring up?
I was thinking about another subject about the practice we were talking in a few. How to practice put into practice the teachings. I was wondering how to put into practice the teachings, mean how to practice anatta. And I think this would be a good question to ask meditators, how can they practice anatta? And I think it's the answer is by understanding the present moment as gone already and not under anyone's control. Because otherwise there must be the idea of someone doing something, even practicing, someone trying to control the reality which is arisen already. And when it's not the reality which we like, it's there's the trying of changing it, of practicing. So basically, practicing means not understanding, I think. Not understanding not understanding now, not understanding the present moment, which is anatta.
Right. So understanding is not a practice. And if there's the idea of practicing anatta or practicing the teachings, it's the wrong path. It's not the right path because it's not the understanding of what is conditioned, not in anyone's control, as you say.
The subtlety of the present moment. So difficult to even even think about it.
But Alberto, the problem is those who meditate, they end up mistaking thinking for understanding and attachment for sati. And that's wrong understanding. And that wrong understanding feels right to them. So how are you going to convince them?
Not convincing, but explaining the how can I say, explaining like the reality which is taken for practice, which is part of the it's part of the reason why one practices is not to practice. It's so, the subtlety of the reality.
So asking the question, how to practice the teachings or how to practice anatta or how to practice metta is the wrong question because they all suggest the idea of someone doing something. So the more understanding that develops, the less there is the idea of practicing or how to do anything. Because as you said, the realities have already conditioned and fallen away.
It's just hearing the word practice is already like a warning, lighting up, which says that something is not according to the teachings at all. It's really moving away from the teachings. It's really taking a wrong path. Instead of, as Ajahn was saying, understanding the reality which experiences, the subtlety of it is that it's not, it doesn't show up, it doesn't appear, and it can only appear to understanding by hearing the teachings. It can only appear not by practice, but by understanding. And so developing means having already something to develop, having the basis to develop. Otherwise, without the pariyatti, which can develop into patipati, it's going it's not going in the right direction.
It's a difficult one.
As you say, developing means no one that develops at all, no one that does anything, no one that practices, know how to do anything, know how to suppress akusala, know how to develop metta. And we don't have much time. Perhaps Ajahn would like to add more comments.
Yes.
So how much understanding of what is there now? See, this is the point that we just talk about the truth from this point and other point, just to have a little bit more understanding of the truth, that what can be known to the moment of realizing the truth which is there. So short, it has to be only when it appears now. In order not to forget about what is there. Otherwise, we think about other things all the time. But what is there? See, it brings just a moment of hearing, listening, considering about what is there, depending on conditions. No one who haven't heard the teachings at all have no idea. But the one who understands that there is no self, what are there in life, must be realities, different ones from time to time. It can lead to have more interest to find out the truth, that the truth is there, the arising and falling away. But is it known now, or realized now, or thought about now? So many different moments by conditions. That's why understanding little by little and have more confidence of just one reality, like understanding. Understanding what? It has to be realized. What is there? Understanding that characteristic as it is. And that is understanding. Otherwise, when and where and what is understood. That's why even the term, the word understanding is a reality. It has its conditions for its arising. Without listening to the teachings about each reality right now, can there be any understanding of the truth of that, as it is there so very short, beyond expectation or imagination at all? And Buddha taught about just one moment at a time in order to begin to understand the absolute truth of what is there as it there. The citta before seeing is not moment of seeing. And seeing can not arise without the citta, which just give way or make way to experience the object, avajana citta. And after that, the vipaka, see, have conditions to arise to the end, the moment of santirana. That's all. The result of Dhamma is there. But what is there accumulated is ready to ooze out. But it cannot just follow santirana. That's why learn about it to have a little more understanding of the truth that even that cannot be known. Because what is known is just through six ways, like seeing, see, not minder. Because what appears, it has to be there, impinged on the eye base. When it's gone, how can they be seeing? Or the citta after seeing experience the same thing, but what is known is only nimitta of seeing, see? And this is life. Learn to understand life as it is, little by little, only there. From life to life, from moment to moment, with being so truthful. Be true to the truth of this moment, how much understanding of the truth of it that we have learned. And this is the panya and satya and adhidana never go wrong, because what can be known, it has to be now. Each word of the teaching is so true that it can be realized, but not at the beginning, because right understanding is not enough to understand the truth that it cannot be taken for anything at all, because it's so very short moment of seeing visible object until it conditioned nimitta, which make known as something all day, all life. That's all. So we live in the world of nimitta, thinking that everything is so permanent right now, but in truth, it's breaking world. That's why listening to the teachings with understanding of the truth, more confidence of the truth, can lead to begin to attend to the characteristic which is different from moment to moment. Great patience, so truthful, how much understanding of hardness now, of visible object now, of thinking now. And it can be known. And at moment of understanding it let go by itself. Let go ignorance and attachment little by little, until it appears little by little as it is, stage by stage. Because even right now, seeing is not hearing, no attention to it. But when there is a moment of being aware of that which is the object and that which experiences, it can lead to a little more letting go, that no one there at all. But be patient, great patience to let it be by condition, not anyone. That's why the path is so very subtle, so subtle. But what is made by shallow, or it is not as subtle, it doesn't mean that the reality is not subtle. It is as subtle as it is all the time. It cannot be changed. But the word of truth make it to be understood of the depth, the subtlety of reality, little by little, to understand how deep it is. Even right now, is it deep enough or subtle enough? Seeing right now. So what about moment when it's so very short? Because it appears through minder as the sensor. See, and sensor is so very, very fast. So minder, when it appears, sensor cannot appear. See, because so short that it cannot appear as now the world of visible objects. And so on, little by little, consider the word again and again and again, and understand that it's there now, that there can be a moment of realizing the truth when there's enough condition to realize it. One day, no matter, no expectation when. And this is the only way to let go attachment and try to do something. It's beyond control. It's beyond expectation, but it can be listened, considered, careful studied, so there can be the firm confidence of what is there now is not permanent. Even thinking about it is very worthwhile because it's the moment of beginning to attend to what is there in life, as it's so short, shorter than anyone can expect. And is this the path? Understanding only condition other wholesomeness to be patient, to let go, not to cling or desire to have such and such reality, to be more metta or to be better or to have more right understanding and so on. That's why Buddha taught about the process after seeing what is there. By conditions, asura. And more than that, added more and more ignorance and attachment when there is no understanding. Is that true? To understand the truth can lead to more understanding of the truth. So we can talk about any reality to understand it a little bit, not to forget it, little by little. And metta is there by conditions. No one.
Yeah, even metta, it's not. Even there's nothing which can be taken
So
for.
all dhammas are anatta. More confidence of each word of truth.
And that's
It
why the
helps when
teachings cannot be put into practice, because nothing can be done, no one to do anything at all.
it also helps in at the moment when there is no metta, maybe there is dosa or aversion, and understanding that metta is anatta also helps understanding that aversion and dosa is anatta just as metta is. Of course, different realities, pleasant and unpleasant.
All passing dhammas of no significance, all gone already. So nothing that is put into practice at all. If there are conditions for understanding, it arises. If there are no conditions, it doesn't arise. But nothing to be done. No one to do anything. That's the main point. There cannot be the practicing of anatta or the practicing of a metta, but there can be the understanding of the nature of metta when it appears, and it develops naturally, all by conditions.
Sarah, before we go, can you remind us again of the dates that you're going to be in Bangkok and most people are going to be?
Yes, I'll put a note on DSG with the details. It will be from the 25th of July. I'll put the details on DSG.
From the 25th of July to when?
I don't have the details in front of me. I'll put the note on DSG.
Oh, okay. I don't always look at DSG. Can you send me an email or something? Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll see everyone next week.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank
I'll
you.
also put a note here next
Thank
time.
you.
Thank you, Thank you.
Thank you,